And sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? Because I tell people sometimes your progression reminds people of their stagnation. So it's like, man, I see you running, and I've been in this spot. Lap me twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people that are, I got a model that I tell young people is if you keep working and I keep working, we'll run into each other.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
But either one of us stop, somebody's gonna do this. You know what I mean? So that's kind of been the biggest thing. Is like, man, he kept going. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's been it.
So
Many people are stuck in the place that they're in largely because of the fact that they're not around people that challenge them. And it's not that they don't know those people don't challenge them, it's that they're scared to be alone.
I am going to make a personal commitment to execution over perfection.
Right now, my company is making, over $200,000 a month.
If you give me a piece of music, what am I going to play? And you put that same, piece of music or elements of music in the hands of Michael Jackson, what is that going to create? Little becomes much when you place it in the hands of the master.
cool. Well, welcome to another edition of Believers Breed, the podcast where the aim is to help people embrace self-awareness, self-confidence, and self-worth. Of course, I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs, business leaders, folks who've done a lot of good stuff, not just because of their skill set, but more so because of their mindset. I got a mover and a shaker with me today.
What's up, man?
Really happy to have this guy. I feel like it's a sort of a black renaissance going on in Nashville. And man, you seem to always be in the middle of it.
I'm glad that's what it looked like. I'm glad that's what it looked like.
But I got Patrick Walker-Reese with me today. And if you don't know who he is, we're going to dive into what his story looks like. And then more importantly, I want to give people very pragmatic tips to how you're going out to get this education bag.
For sure, for sure.
So
for sure.
For those that don't know you, man, and even those that do, tell us who you are.
Man, Patrick Walker-Reese, educator, author, speaker, poet. I always say educator first. I run a company called Live to Aspire. Actually, the company is called Aspire, but our merch brand is Live to Aspire. And we repurpose sports and entertainment for the purpose of educational advancement. That's the long and the short of it, but we'll dive in a little more.
Okay, cool.
Grew up on the south side of Chicago and the east side of Nashville. I always think where you're from is important.
When did you come here to the city?
I've been here since fifth grade.
Fifth
I've been here
grade,
since
okay.
fifth grade. Yeah.
So you got that real steering here in Nashville.
Yeah. So I always tell people I grew up in Chicago, but I'm from Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from Nashville.
So you've seen things change a lot, I'm assuming, over the last 10, 15 years or so?
For sure. Some for the good, some for the, I won't say for the worst, but everything hasn't always been for the betterment of our people, but it's been a change for sure.
So I'm from Memphis.
Okay.
And so I am a product of the public school system. And every conversation that me and friends and anybody had about school was trying to get out.
Yeah.
And so I am really interested to know why you're going back in. What is the purpose of you wanting to be involved in education?
I mean, people spend more time at school than they spend anywhere else in our life. If we look at our life now, if you in your 20s or in your 30s, mathematically, you've probably spent more time in the educational environment than you spent anywhere else in your life. You spend more time with your teachers than you do with your parents from the ages of 8 to 18, factually, you know what I mean? And then after that, we send you off to college, where you're spending more time in the educational environment than you are physically under the roof of your parents' home, right? And so the reason that I was in education, I always wanted to be an educator. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. But once I got out of school, I realized that the life I wanted, I couldn't do it on $37,000, $40,000 a year, right? And so I had some friends that were heavy in the entrepreneurial space. And so I was like, man, I got to give it a shot. And so for me, when my mind switched to entrepreneurialism, it was about what do I do and what have I done? And so I was trying to not reinvent the wheel. And so luckily I found out about some people that were doing like $10,000 contracts in education. I heard Eric Thomas say Nike gave him $10,000 for a speech, and I was like, oh, word. Because I had already been given like speeches, 4-H when I was in school, you know what I mean? I was SJ president at Tennessee State University, so the speech lane was always there. But I didn't know people were making $10,000, $7,500, $4,500 for hour engagements, right? So once I found that out, it was like, okay, let's try this.
This is possible.
Yeah, but to answer your question, it was just, I felt like the development that I wanted to have in young people and adults alike had to start in the education space, like I said, because we just spend so much time there. And it's subconscious. Like when you tell a parent that, you know, your child spend more time with me than he does with you, they look at you like, and then they start thinking about it like, yeah, he's spending 40 hours a week with me and maybe 20, 30 at home. And then on the weekends, you know, your friends and all those other influences, right? And so school, research says that school is more influential on a young person's life than any other factor. But you only actually are getting education about 2 hours a day. So when you think about your high school experience or your middle school experience, you're only learning something maybe 1 to 2 periods a day. The other 6 hours is all social development.
And that's crazy that you say that, because when I think back to high school, the most impactful educators that I had were Miss Alejo, who
Okay.
taught me AP English.
Shouts out to Miss Alejo.
But it had nothing to do with English.
Yeah.
It was the fact that she taught us about the differences in perspectives between men and women.
She taught you how to think.
Yes.
Yeah, independently.
Yes. I had another teacher by the name of Dan Jones who taught physics, who crushed us Monday through Thursday. Like physics was extremely challenging. But on Fridays, he had something called Freestyle Friday. And like I said, I'm from Memphis. And this is early 2000s to where
So y'all was actually rapping.
like
That's
Yo
cold.
Gotti, Player Fly,
Yeah.
Project, that era before Memphis got flashy, like with the money bag yos.
Yeah.
And this was like the biggest thing we looked forward to throughout the week was Friday.
Freestyle Friday, yeah.
And like just thinking about what he did for our social development that you just spoke about, like I didn't know that until moments like now, to where I go back and I'm in a high school and I realize these kids need a lot more than A's and B's.
Yeah.
And so like I'm eager to know, what is your perspective and philosophy on when you walk into a school and being the guy that comes in with the fitted hat on and a hoodie and, you know, some Stan Smiths?
Man, it's powerful, right? Anytime I speak, I always put myself in the shoes of the young person. So Thursday I'll do a keynote for Purpose Prep 4th graders. And
Shout out to Lager Newman.
Shouts out to Lager, shouts out to Purpose Prep. We finished up a 4-part series. They were reading Pat Facts, my second book, and then they asked me to keynote their graduation. And so I always try to go back to, man, what was I thinking about in 4th grade? And take that back, earlier you asked me about when did I get here. I've been here since 4th grade because I went to Alice Green for a second.
Gotcha.
So I don't want anybody to see this and be like, I went to 4th grade with bro, he lying, right? So let's go back. But so just thinking about like what was important to me in 4th grade. So I remember being in 4th grade, like drawing shoes and thinking about Orlando Magic versus the Bulls and Jordan and Penny Hardaway and learning how to read and still wanting to be on the principals list. But I also remember that I don't remember much of anything else. And so anytime I walk into a school, my first thing is to be memorable. To say something or do something, to wear something that will make these young people remember me, right? So how can I be somebody's Miss Alejo? How can I be somebody's Mr. Jones,
yeah.
right? And just me hearing those two names, I remember those two names, right? And so the other thing is I tell people, most people never remember who spoke at any of their graduations.
True.
High school, I've had several. High school, 8th grade, 2 in college, and I couldn't tell you who spoke at any of them. And so I think that's the energy that I take in. I rarely ever wear dress shoes. I did a speech at Pearl-Cohn once early, and I had on some Concord 11s. And I remember when they announced me, I was sitting in the back, because a lot of times I like to sit in the back and just kind of watch the perspectives and what
People
the children are doing before I go speak, so I can bring that to it. And as I was walking down, I could hear the boys like, "Hey, bro, you got some J's? He got on the 11s." Like as I'm walking, it's like whispers, and I was like, now I remember being like, man, if I was in school and somebody came in some Jordans and a hat, just from my school letting him come in like this, I'm gonna already be thinking like, man, he on something. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna listen to him for at least that first 5. And now if he terrible after that, then I'm probably gonna go. And so that was kind of my mindset, man, is to be relatable and be memorable. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, just be honest. Those are really the 3 things I try to take into every situation.
And so when you go into a school like Purpose Prep or a Pearl Cone and you create those relationships with students and you create that relatability factor, do you have those people in your life that you are able to connect with now that you can say, that was my Mr. Alejo, that
sure.
was my Mr. Jones,
For sure.
that was my Patrick Walker-Reese?
For sure.
What do those conversations look like now?
They beautiful, you know what I mean? And so Tom Ward was my principal at Hume Fogg. He's over the Oasis Center here. Cheryl Clayton was my geometry teacher, math all through time at Hume Fogg. And I just remember being able to be honest with her about the fact that I'm not going to use any of this shit. You know what I'm saying? And then her explaining to me why I needed it outside of the nuts and bolts of it, right? And so I ran into Angela Hubbard. Shouts out to Angela Hubbard, basketball coach at Hume Fogg. She's graduating after like 50 years of teaching. Retiring after 50 years of teaching. So when I see most of those people, they're excited to see that I'm pouring back into the young people. They're excited to see that I made a business out of it. But I think when you're in education, man, you've seen so many kids go left. You've seen so many kids die. You've seen so many kids become victim to the system that anytime you see somebody figure it out, it's just kind of a breath of fresh air. And I think, you know, when we have children and when we work with children, we realize, and when we're young, I tell young people all this time, when you're young, you don't know that you got to be $250,000 to buy the house that you grew up in. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people can't afford to buy the house they grew up in. But when you're young, you're dreaming about doing something totally different. You know, like literally the house I grew up in East Nashville right now might be a $400,000 or $500,000 house. But when I was sleeping it in 2001 and 2002, I'm dreaming about going out, getting something crazy, but you're not understanding, like, man, the $1 million that you're talking about, that MBA dream, that being that lawyer, being that doctor, you don't really understand the work that it takes. But when you're an adult and you're looking back, so like when my mentor, William Latham, he's out in DC, or Joseph Robinson, when they look back and you see a young man like paying his bills, starting a company, you kind of find solace and happiness right in there because you realize how hard it is just to be regular.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Especially for African American people. And so that's been one of the most rewarding parts of the journey, is when I'll go do like I did Antioch High School's commencement. And you start to see people that were like educators when you were young, or you do work at Tennessee State University and there's people there when you moved into Watson. And sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, you know what I'm saying? Because I tell people sometimes your progression reminds people of their stagnation. So it's like, man, I see you running and I've been in this spot, you know, lapped me twice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But people I got a model that I tell young people is, if you keep working and I keep working, we'll run into each other.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
But either one of us stop, somebody's gonna do this. You know what I mean? So that's kind of been the biggest thing, is like, man, he kept going. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's been it.
So at what point did you say, all right, I'm gonna try this education thing and I'm gonna make a business out of it? Because it's very philanthropic. A lot of the times we go into these places and
Great
we
question.
give, and then the expectation becomes give.
Great question.
So how did you say, man, I'm gonna monetize this gift that I have, and I'm not gonna worry about people frowning upon me making money from this gift?
So when I came out of school, when I was in school, I had a work study, and then I got off-campus work study at Martha O'Brien Center in East Nashville. Okay. So halfway through my work study, so I was getting paid from the university just to go there to work study. So the organization wasn't paying me, but they just had me on their books as a volunteer, right? So they have no idea about work study papers and all of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think I was signing. I had the secretary; she would sign off on my form. I would take it back to the university. About a year into that work study, their gym person quit. And so they asked me, would I be the interim like recreation coordinator? And I was like, yeah, well, what do I need to do? They're like, pretty much the same thing you're doing. We're just gonna ask you to make sure you're here 4 days a week, and we're gonna pay you like $11 an hour. So in my head, I'm like, word? So I'm gonna get my work study. So now I'm getting like $30-some an hour for the same hours that I was already there working, volunteering, right? But as I was doing that, I started to see like the budget of education from the nonprofit standpoint. So I started to see like the science guy that we were bringing in and paying $150 an hour. I started to see like the kickball guy or the bike coordinator, just people that had their own, you know what I'm saying, little programs that they would contract out. So when I graduated, I became the middle school transition coach at Martha O'Brien. So my job was to take middle schoolers and get them ready for high school. And so I spent about 10 years at Martha O'Brien between interning and actually working. And so in that, in 2012, and again, so that was what I was doing every day in education. But on this end, I had friends that were throwing parties and owning businesses, and they were making upwards of 100,000 ever since we were in school. And so after a couple Miami trips and different things like that, it was just like, man, I got to figure out how to make more
Stretch
money.
your head a little bit.
Yeah, it's like I just got to figure out how to make more money. You know what I mean? These guys had time, they had money, they were having fun, and I loved what I was doing. But I was just like, man, I can't sit with the fact that you have to be poor or broke because you're passionate about it or because you're in education. And I remember, man, I got a whole, Eric Thomas did a mixtape. And I remember just sitting in my garage and I heard him, I was sitting with my brother, Chef Batts, and I heard him say Nike gave him $10,000 for a speech. And I said, man, rewind that. And he said it again, and I was like, boom. And I went to my director, actually Don Reese, her husband used to coach at TSU, Coach Reese, and I told her, like, man, I'm thinking about quitting. And she was like, man, are you sure? Because I had a great job, you know what I'm saying? But to be as young as I was, didn't work on Fridays, and that's why I didn't go into teaching. So a lot of people ask me, I've never been a certified teacher because I came out of school making maybe 42,000, only working Monday through Thursday as a nonprofit coordinator. And when I started talking to my friends that was teachers, they was doing maybe 35, 37, 39.
Didn't make sense.
And they was doing 5 days a week, way more work. And so when I told her, she was like, I like it, but don't quit till you have a plan. And so she helped me go back to school. I got my master's. She helped me get a graduate assistantship so that I wouldn't have to pay for it. And then when I went to get my master's, I told them I want to build a company that I can travel and speak and teach people how to dream. But I had been bouncing it off of people and I didn't know. I ended up going to a meeting with Metro schools, and I took them this presentation I had, and they were like, I like it. She was like, do you have a curriculum? I'm like, a curriculum? She's like, yeah, if you have a curriculum, we can put you in the budget for $10,000 contracts. And I thought that was God speaking to me because the 10,000 was the number that
I heard from Eric Thomas.
you understand what I'm saying? Now, he was getting it in one-time speeches. The contract game was like, oh, man, you might come out 4 times or you might come out for a semester. But for me, at this point, I'm like, 10,000. You know what I mean? And so that was when I really started to see like, oh, nah. And then I was at East Nashville at the height of the charter school movement. So we talked a little bit about the change. And so because I was working in the projects, I was in James Casey, we were the hotbed for charter schools. So people were coming pretty much like recruiting our young people. And I was watching these directors run up. You know what I mean? I think the city at the time, even today, I think you get about $1,200 to $1,400 per kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And this might be like quarterly or semesterly. So these people were coming, getting the kids, and then test time, sending them back. And then every 2 years, the director would leave and go back to New York or go back to Texas, and our kids are just being in limbo. And so I'm like, man, hold on. These people getting rich, they don't care for real, and they don't look like us. I'm hopping in.
Yeah.
And that was really how I got into the education game, and I saw caring, looking like the students, and then having the knowledge. And that's the thing I told my students. Like, the masters really helped me. So I got my master's in public administration with a certificate in nonprofit management because I thought I was going to like run a Martha O'Brien or run a Boys and Girls Club. But to answer your question, when I started the company, because I had went to the contract meeting, I could only get the contracts if I had an LLC. So I even tell people today, a lot of people come to me like, can you help me start a nonprofit? Yes, we do have a nonprofit wing, the Be the Dream Foundation. But when you see me out, it's an LLC. Yeah, them people paying me to come, you know what I mean? Because they have it in their budgets. But so many of us think that the only way to help our people is through the nonprofit wing. What I tell people, nonprofits is for people that have money, where you sitting around with friends that, like if I was sitting talking to you, you like, bro, I got 30 million I'm trying to get rid of. I got you.
Yeah, I got a place you can go. Yeah.
But when you're trying to make money or trying to build wealth, a nonprofit is not the way to like make money. Again, unless you got a lot of rich friends that's gonna dump you $1 million or $250,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, for sure. I started a nonprofit in 2014. And like probably about a year ago, I realized I should have done this the other way. Like started the business, created that cash flow, and then fund the nonprofit through that.
Yeah, because really what you want to do is you want to get you a business, and then you want to funnel your own expenses and your own revenue to your own nonprofit, because the government is going to take it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Most people don't know that the NFL is a nonprofit organization.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so Jerry Jones is running a nonprofit, but he's running a nonprofit that has for-profit entities attached to it. So that's why even when you're young, if you ever collected basketball cards or a football card, on the back it'll say club. You know what I'm saying? So it'd be like club from 01, because the NFL is a nonprofit, and then you have these clubs that are part of the nonprofit.
That's good.
And then so Jerry Jones makes his money from owning the stadium that my nonprofit entity plays in. So same thing
Well
with,
had.
you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
same thing with Martha O'Brien and some of these larger entities. I own the land. I own the community center. And then I'm making my money off the top of these grants and these programs that's coming in. So once I really kind of saw the game, so I jumped into the game as an education consultant. Because what I tell people is what I learned from going to these brunches and these breaks. I was watching Martha O'Brien make, man, probably, we used to do these champion breakfasts, and they would do like $2.5 million at a breakfast. And they would have our kids like serving, and then make the kids sit in the back. And I remember going to them like, man, y'all gotta get a table for my kids, because the kids are the reason that these people giving the money. And so that was kind of my driving force into like the business. And so to go back to your other question about the families and the kids and the educators that I worked with, oftentimes the people that follow my journey, they're attracted to it because it's not 100% philanthropic. And I'm running a business.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make $1 million in education.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
Partially because I want to run it up, but partially because I want other people to know that it's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can have these philanthropic aspirations. You can want to make the world a better place and get rich.
And not be broke.
Yeah.
Poor.
You don't have to be broke to help people. Yeah.
So I want to unpack the way that you've been able to, like the nuts and bolts of getting that $1 million through education.
For sure.
Because I think right now, what you're doing is becoming a lot more attractive, a lot more sexy to people to actually get into education. And now I don't feel pigeonholed into having to be an athlete or a rapper, but now I can look at that entrepreneur and say, dang, that's something I want to be. Or he's coming in here with J's on, I can get J's being in education. So can we kind of walk through and pace through, where does it start? What is the ground one of locking in a contract, being able to get into the school system?
Perfect, man. So the foundation of any business is relationships. And so I tell people, for me, the reason I went into education consulting is because I knew so many teachers, educators, nonprofit workers, just from my time in that space. And so when I decided I wanted to be a speaker, which led into the workshops, and we'll talk about that transition, because initially I just wanted to be Eric Thomas. My vision was, I'll go somewhere, I'll give a speech,
And I'm
the
out of
speech
there.
will be fine, boom. But then I realized, and I went to a thing with Eric Thomas, Inky Johnson, and David Shan. And I remember sitting there like,
Cold.
man, right? And I remember David went first, and I was like, cool, okay, I could do that. Jeremy Anderson went next. He had the story. I'm like, okay, cool. Then Inky went.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, nah, he different.
He did.
He different.
Yeah.
And then Eric came. And what I realized is that, crazy thing is, prior to me seeing Inky, at that, I had a relationship with Inky. I met him, talked to him. I had a mutual friend that connected us. We talked on social media, and we were actually going to link. Probably about a week after that, they did this ESPN special.
He's out of here.
Right? But I remember being like, I'm never going to have like a one-armed hero story. So that can't be my, you know what I'm saying? And then David, he just had a crazy entrepreneur grind, right? His shirts, and I had to Be the Dream shirts and the merch. Jeremy was a model that I really could follow, because he was just like, to me, it was like a regular Joe that grinded it out.
Figured
you know
it
what
out,
I mean?
yeah.
And Eric was just Eric. You know what I mean? But what I realized was, in any, whether it's business, IT, or whatever, people become experts in an industry and then they go consult because those are the industries that they had the relationships in. And so with speaking being my first mind, and I told somebody this yesterday, it was literally calling anybody I knew that would give me 30 minutes to an hour. And at the time I was running a presentation called Dreams, Desires, Imagination. That was the name of the speech that I was traveling with. It was like, how do you take a dream, move it to a desire, and then use your imagination to take it as far as you can go. So I was doing that, and it was cool. So to answer your question, step one pragmatically is literally make a list of who will let me in. It's no different than if you're selling shirts, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're selling cakes, or if you doing construction. You're gonna sit down somewhere and say, who do I know that has money for this and will give it to me? And so that became my first speaking tour. And then I was doing that, and I was going out and people were like, man, where's your book? And I was like, what? Why I need a book?
Yeah.
And they're like, bro, even if you come speak for free, if you got a book, people can buy something from you. And I'm like, boom. And so somewhere we were in it and it was going, and I went to a conference or something. And I don't even remember, I remember calling my business partner and saying, man, after I went to that contract meeting.
Okay.
And she said, build a curriculum. And so I went back to Tennessee State University to the curriculum and education department, and I was like, I need a curriculum. So I showed them the presentation, Dream, Desires, Imagination, and under that I had 3 points for each topic. So dreams was vision, passion, strength. Desire was process, discipline, consistency. Imagination was execution, environment, exposure.
That's good.
So when I went to the curriculum writing workshop, they told me take your key points and make a workshop out of each one.
Yeah.
So when I went back, I went did curriculum instruction for 1 semester, and then I saw that curriculum instruction was gonna put me right back in the school space with no real money. So I switched to a master's in public administration because people were telling me that was like the MBA for the public sector. Right?
Yeah.
In hindsight, I would have got a real MBA
Gotcha.
because I didn't know that I was about to start a company. I'm still thinking philanthropic. You know what I'm saying? So in hindsight, and I still think about it, but I got my MBA kind of like on the go now, right? But so that was that. So having the relationships and then getting the information about how money is spent in that field. No different than if you're a plumber or whatever, right? Because even if you're a plumber, there's 2 ways you get money, right? You go to somebody's house, you fix their toilet, they pay you. Or you go to the city, they give you a contract, and then you go fix stuff that people don't even know nothing about, and your money come up off the top, right? So we took that approach.
Okay.
The contract approach changed everything. But keep in mind, you cannot get these contracts unless you have an EIN number, unless you have an LLC. You understand what I'm saying? So that was the first approach. And then once I developed the modules, so we started out with the vision, passion, strength, and I hired a teacher to help me put it in lesson plan format. Because again, I never had been a teacher. So I paid a teacher, Warren Dean, he was teaching at the time, one of the guys who let me come speak in his class. Boom. And then I started practicing. And so people would give me honorariums. Some people would have smaller $100 budgets, $200 budgets. I was doing end of the year celebrations, stuff like that. But the transition and the game changer for me was that I made a flyer everywhere I went, and I took a camera everywhere I went in the beginning. Because I realized that I couldn't tell somebody I gave a good speech yesterday. I had to be able to show them. But it also gave me leverage when I went into school, because when I was walking in school with the J's and the suit and the camera, I got videos on YouTube while I was walking in Whites Creek, and you can see the kid. Like, man, who is Brian?
That's good.
And so I had the buy-in already when I sat down. And then I came in just straight with the raw perspective, and I had a couple tats. So when my thing was I used to do the dreams and the desire speech, and I would take my jacket off right before imagination. And you would see the whole room shift when they saw the tattoos, because it was just that next level of like, wow. Because I'm thinking about my own self in high school, right? Even to this day, like if this version of myself, or take you for example, if you walked into your high school, you would have listened to you. Yeah. Just based on what you look like, because I've never seen you in this space. Yep. And so that was my leverage piece. That was my leverage piece, doubling down on who I naturally was.
And then at what point did you like fine tune sitting across from somebody asking for your worth?
Still doing it.
Still doing it.
Still
Work
doing
in progress.
And so that goes back to the mentor piece, right? And so one of my main mentors, Dr. Latham, he ran the honors program at TSU for a while. He's at University of District Columbia now. And so he's actually, and UDC has been one of my main clients for a long time, especially prior to the pandemic. But every time I would reassess my company, which we do every 6 months to a year. So right now we're moving from programmatic to like working with schools to systematic to working with districts. Working with departments at universities to working with the entire university. And so every time I would have something, I would send it to them and say, hey, what would I need to change or fix about this for you to be able to give me $50,000? What do I need to change about this for you to be able to give me, you know what I mean? And so once I went from like, hey, I'm bringing Patrick up to talk for an hour to, hey, I'm bringing Patrick up for 2 days to do 3 workshops. And the thing I realized was that all of those $10,000, $20,000 one-day speeches, those were going to Inky and Eric. And I felt cool because I knew those guys. I was in the space. I saw Inky at Tennessee State's graduation a couple years ago. I think his sister graduated or a family member.
Okay.
And just ironically, I'm in the hallway, you know, when people in the graduation, they parley. I'm like, man, what's up, Inky, man? We gotta. He was like, man, I've been seeing what you're doing. Keep going. That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. But I realized that it's gonna be hard for somebody to give me $10,000 for a 1-hour speech. But people will give you $10,000 for 2-day workshops, 2-day retreats. You know what I'm saying? And once I did, but it was cool for me because I liked it because the workshop model gave me a chance to see the client and the students and the people more than once. Because my model in the beginning was I don't care how good the speech is, you're not changing nobody's life in 60 minutes. But if I can see you 6 weeks, you know what I mean? I was doing a contract in New York. One of my first contracts I had, it was a $10,000 6-week contract in New York. And I remember after the second week, the kids was like, where you from? I'm like, Nashville. They're like, how you get here? I'm like, I flew. They like, shut up, son.
No.
They like, shut, you know, New York. They like, shut up, son. On God. So you fly here every week for us, B? I'm like, yeah. Who paying for it? I'm like, your department. No, because they looking at the juice boxes. They thinking like me. Don't nobody have $10,000 to be giving you to come here and talk to us. And so they like, word on my mother, son. I'm coming back next week to see if you here, yo. If you here next week, son, I'm gonna come every time, son. And I was like, yo, I'm back.
I'm back.
You know what I mean? And that was when I was like, yeah, this is the way. Because even if I would have took that 10 for that 1, it wouldn't have gave me the impact that I needed. You know what I mean? And from a marketing standpoint, the workshops gave me opportunities to grow. So even with the Purpose Prep thing that we talked about, I'll be doing their keynote, but I saw those kids every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 weeks.
Touch points.
So when I get up there and I say dreams come true, they're gonna scream every day. Because they've been working with me already.
Good.
You know what I mean?
That's good.
And it goes back to, I told you my thing was I wanted to be memorable. I wanted to be authentic. You know what I mean? And so it's way easy to be memorable if you see somebody more than once.
I want to ask more about that authenticity. So because I follow Shan's like to the T. Because I see more of me and him than any of the others. But at times I have to check myself to make sure I'm being me and I'm not becoming him or whoever else. Do you feel yourself fighting against like, man, Inky cold and I want to pull this, but making sure that you're not becoming Inky Johnson or whoever else? Yeah,
for sure. For me, it was ET, and it was more like trying to follow the triangle offense without having Kobe and Jordan. You just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like the triangle offense only works if you got a Kobe and a Jordan in it. If I don't have to give one person that much attention, the triangle offense isn't gonna work. And so when I was starting my company, I was running Eric Thomas Plays, but I'm not on YouTube every Monday. I don't have a camera crew following me like that. And so he was building his brand while I was trying to build a company.
That's good.
And so it wasn't really working for me. So I had to pick and choose what was what. And then because I was already, I've been wearing, you go back and look at any picture from my childhood, I've been wearing hats. You know what I'm saying? Yankee hats. I used to wear Philly hats because they had the P on it, you know what I'm saying? And so I was already kind of like in that box with Eric because he was wearing the hats and things like that. And so I was like, I don't want people to think I'm doing this just because of bruh. I was already doing that, right? And so the biggest thing for me was when I switched to the workshop model, that's when it was like, this is me. And so I went and I developed So for example, the challenge was, how do I sell vision to a group of young people in 60 minutes? And so we developed a format where we'll do 4 15-minute activities. So even now when I develop workshops, I'm thinking about what is the big overarching concept and how do I make you able to feel that? How do I make vision tangible? And that was the hard part in the beginning, because we were trying to sell intangible things. Like, what is passion? How do you sell passion? So for example, for vision, we looked at Google and Nike, created a worksheet that had their vision statements listed out, and then made people create their own vision statements around 3 key concepts.
That's good.
You understand what I'm saying?
Good.
And so when I went in with that, it was like, oh, this is Patrick. This is Aspire. And even now, it's like, I can give you our Dream Builders workbook, and you can't deliver it like Patrick Walker-Reese. I can give it to Eric Thomas, and he won't deliver it like Patrick Walker-Reese. And he may do it better, he may do it worse, but it won't be like
Patrick Walker-Reese.
Walker-Reese.
Yeah.
And so that's the caveat, because even when we're buying Nikes, my first, in the 80s and the 90s, when we was buying Nikes, we was buying Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
So the business still comes back to the person. And so again, even when you go buy a Sleepers for Suckers shirt, you buying David.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what I had to realize, is that even though people are interested in Patrick, and for my team, and as you're growing, and I tell people this on our consulting calls, it's easier to get people to work for a brand than for a person. So it's people. So even now, my team, they're like, I work with Aspire. I work for Aspire with Patrick. It's harder for people to grasp, I work for Patrick. You know what I'm saying? Until Patrick is Puff or Jay. When you get that big, like, and now
They want to work.
yeah, I work for Eric Thomas. No one cares. You know what I'm saying? But when you doing the lock-ins and the church back doors and all of those things, like, nobody wants to say. And so that was the thing for me. But great question, man. So that authenticity piece, because there's very few things that's new under the sun. So you're always pulling inspiration from somewhere, but just making sure that, like, some of those guys, like, you'll never see me with my hat on backwards. Ever.
Yeah.
You could very, I think I got one picture online. I was at a Pat Poem show. It was at the end of the show. I was tired, and I just had threw the hat around to answer some questions. But some people wear their hat backwards. You know what I mean? And so that's just a small example of how you got to stay, like, authentic to who you are, even if you look up and you see some resemblance of yourself in other people.
That's good. So when talking about Aspire and building out that team, obviously you have your vision. It started with who you were. At what point did you say, I need more hands on deck to really get this done?
Day one.
Day one. Okay.
So when I first had the idea, I knew I needed, because I was watching E.T. and them guys, I knew I needed a design team. And so I went to my line brother. He was from Knoxville, but he was in New York at the time, and he was creating websites and those types of things. And I just didn't have the money for a website, so we did like a phantom partnership. We created a partnership around something that didn't even exist yet.
That's good.
And we used to have imaginary arguments on percent. Every time we would restructure our percentages, he would ask me, like, so if we get a $20,000 contract, how much of that would you be willing to give me? And so he was like, you know what I mean? So it was like 10%. I'm like, okay, that's 2,000. So, man, I'm taking home 18. You take home 2. Now that don't seem too fair. All right, well, about 30%. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that's how we really worked it out. But I appreciate it, because I didn't realize I was doing high level business in the beginning. And it probably would have been cheaper for me on the front end to just pay. But I literally didn't have it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But now, as I do other business, I realize that percentages is the way business is done at the highest level, because it gives people buy-in to your mission and to your vision. So even now with the people that we brought on to our team, everybody is contracted in from a percentage standpoint. So when that box of books comes in, if we sell 100,000 books or 20,000 books, your percentage is in that. And so people are more inclined to, like, well, let me help you
push this.
Let me help you push this.
Yeah.
Because there's no ceiling on what I can make. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they just feel more entitled. And like I said, once I got into studying business, so when I started my company, I was studying Oprah, I was studying Jay, I was studying Warren Buffett, and they, all of their deals were percentage based.
Yeah.
Even when Jay was with the Nets, it was like 0.8%, but 0.8% of
Of
billion, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like I'll take 0.8% of a billion any day and walk out of here happy.
Yeah.
Versus 800,000, because you could take 800,000 and it sounds great. Like Jordan would have made more money getting 1% of Nike than that million something that they gave him.
For it, yeah.
But hindsight is always 2020.
Yeah.
How does he know to take 1% of a failing company in '84? You know what I'm saying? Versus boom, but looking back in hindsight, he like, damn, that 1%.
I might be the greatest player ever.
That 1% is sweet, right? So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, for sure. So where is Live to Aspire going? What do you hope to see?
Cool. So clarification: Live to Aspire is specifically the merch company.
Okay.
So the books, the hoodies, Live to Aspire is specifically the merch,
Okay.
because we kind of took the mindset of live strong. And I know Lance Armstrong, a bunch of people got a bunch of opinions. You know what I'm saying? I personally don't think that steroids can help you win 7 of anything. And I'm not a scientist. I don't know nothing about it, but nonetheless, they made millions off of a model and a wristband.
Yep.
And so we wanted Aspire to be, so for people that don't know, the word aspire means to direct one's hope. And so I always tell people, I'm not giving nobody hope. You got hope inside you. You're born with it. Every day you wake up, breathe, drink water, love somebody besides yourself, you're hoping that things go well for you. So we are a people of hope. You know what I'm saying? Just to be black in our country, you got hope all around
Absolutely.
you. I hope the police don't shoot the shit out of me today.
Yep.
I hope my grandma don't get diabetes because this stuff we've been eating for 100 years,
Yep.
right? And so even when I go out, I'm trying to take what's inside of you and mix it up in a way that you feel something in this hour that's going to direct you to do something else. And the best speakers, they have their way. We've all been sitting in rooms, churches and teachers like you talked about, that they're doing them, but it's making something inside of you.
I feel something.
Boy,
Yeah.
to the point where if they do it well enough, if we do it well enough, when we leave, you're charged to do something.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's where Live to Aspire is as a merch company. Aspire, during the pandemic, we changed ourselves to Aspire, a human development company.
Okay.
So if you look at any other sign on the door, Aspire is a human development company. So what we want to do, long term, the business to have a building. So we're in our office now, but I want to have a building that encompasses a couple of our departments. So right now we have an elementary department that we program heavily with K through 4 through our Pat Facts book, and we focus on social emotional skills.
Okay.
Then we have a middle school department where we do the same thing, but it's a little more in depth, because once you get to middle school, you can kind of understand those concepts. Secondary education, sports, and then mindfulness.
That's good.
And so in an ideal world, our program Dream Builders will be nationally recognized as the nation's leading SEL company, because we repurpose sports and entertainment and create cultural relevant ways to teach people about social emotional learning.
Okay.
That's what we want to be known for, from the Dream Builders component. And then the Dream Builders Plus now is our professional development. So Plus standing for professional leaders understanding self.
Okay.
Right? And now we're looking to work with some of the larger entities. So right now we work with like Slim and Huskies. We did their management training meeting. We work with Citizens Bank. We do their quarterly trainings, trying to get into companies like HCA. So as a human development company, we want to deal with anybody that's dealing with humans. Anybody that's moving and developing humans over a long period of time. We want them to look at our research-based, data-driven approach to developing people.
And if you had a dream gig, I don't want to shut you out of any, but if it was a dream gig, everything were to go right,
NBA.
NBA, is it a specific team or you want everybody in the pack out of arena? Give me all the players.
Because there's only like 350 people in the league. You understand what I'm saying? But I tell people all the time, one of the reasons that we look to repurpose sports and entertainment, because for our culture, those people have been influencing the generation for years, whether we admit it or not.
Yeah.
So even when I go into schools now, when I bring athletes or artists or the Starlitos or the Darius Garlands or the John Jenkins or whoever it may be,
They light up.
yeah. And not only do they light up, it's like I keep that social equity when they leave. You know what I'm saying? So it's no different. If I walk into a school with Moneybag Yo, they like, man, that's Moneybag. But how you get Moneybag to come here? So even when Moneybag leaves, they like, bro, that's Mr. Reese, bro. He ain't Moneybag in this thing. You gotta listen to him. And some people don't look at that route because their ego is involved. I don't care because these kids are NBA YoungBoy, Lil Baby, LeBron James. Those people are driving the culture. I tell people when we were coming up, there was 3 times I saw the world around me change. Allen Iverson, Cash Money, and Rockefeller. When like you saw everything around. When Iverson hit, everybody had braids.
Yep.
Everybody had the jersey.
Yep.
Everybody was getting called for carry doing crossovers.
Yep.
You didn't even want to play sometimes because
Yep.
people just
Yep.
right. When Cash Money hit, white tees, headbands, Jabos, Reeboks.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Like physically, people around you are changing,
Yep.
right? And then Rockefeller had this whole like push of like black entrepreneurialism, New York hats, and that was the first time we like, man, Jay got Reeboks.
Yeah.
And then in that, people forget that there was a whole wave where you wasn't wearing nothing but black clothes. Rockefeller, Fubu, Aniche. We wasn't wearing no. People tell you I ain't wearing no Tommy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now we've switched to this kind of like designer wave. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But that's still influenced by them people wearing them big ass shoes.
Yeah.
Nobody's walking in the mall like, man, them shoes fly.
Yeah.
They're like, man, that's them shoes so and so had on,
Yeah.
right? And so as an educator, even when I meet with principals, I show my principal. I tell you can't be a principal in today's world and not know who NBA YoungBoy is.
Yeah.
You have to watch these videos.
Yep.
And when the principals watch it, they're like, wow, all of my kids look like this.
Yep.
All of my kids behave like this. But what I tell them is no different than if you're at a Catholic school and those kids do what they do because the Bible told them to do it. These kids are doing what they do because NBA told them to do it.
the
NBA
Bible.
told them this is how you deal with authority. This is how you deal with women. This is how you talk to that teacher if she say something you don't like.
Yeah.
But when you let them know that you in that world, you know that song, you know them lyrics, then they more inclined to listen to you as well.
Yeah.
And I think as adults, we kind of forget how influenced we were
At that age.
by those things.
Yeah.
Like we watch these videos 8-9 times a day.
Yeah.
We watch Lil Bow Wow over and over,
Yeah.
and thinking like we all thought like, how the hell is Bow Wow just popping at 11?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what has he been doing in his first 120 months on this earth that got him up this
Yeah.
much? But those influential factors, man, and so that's what we try to do. And as Aspire, we want to be that company that large entities look towards when they're trying to translate educational deliverables to the rest of the world.
That's good. That's good. So I do a thing every episode to where I blow up a balloon.
Okay.
And on that balloon, I ask the guest to write one word or one phrase. This should be good for you. You're a wordsmith.
For sure.
That you feel like handcuffs people and prevents them from taking those steps of faith forward. So for you, it was a point to where you said, this is what I want to do. I want to be that educator in an unconventional way, and I'm going to chase and pursue that.
For sure.
But a lot of people see that, but there's something that prevents them from moving forward.
Agreed.
So I'm going to blow this up, and then I'm going to give you the balloon to
Okay.
write that word or phrase. I always struggle with this.
I was gonna say you doing a lungs test every episode,
Yeah.
man.
We might get a pat fact here.
Nah, I'm just gonna put one word, man. I think because I tell people when you start your business or when you start anything, think about a word that you want to become synonymous with. So we used to have this argument, me and my friends, we was in New York once, and we had an argument about who was more influential, Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson. And so to solve the argument, we went around New York asking people, but the challenge was all you could say was Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson. You couldn't give any other context. And what we found was every time most people would say Michael Jordan, but whenever somebody said Michael Jackson, they would always give the caveat, Michael Jackson, but some of the other accusations that came with his name. And the last thing we did was, there was an Asian lady, and she said, I don't know either, leave me. And when she was walking away, she had some J's on. And I told the guys I won, but what I told them is the reason why I think Michael Jordan will always go down as more influential than Michael Jackson is because his name is synonymous with more things. If you ask 10 people, and you play the game where I'm gonna say one word, you say the next word. If you say Chicago, half of them people gonna say Michael Jordan. If you say basketball, half them people gonna say Michael Jordan. If you say shoes, half them people gonna say Michael Jordan. If you say bald headed, half them people gonna say Michael Jordan. On the reverse, Michael Jackson doesn't have those same ownerships of those cats. If you say music, you're gonna get a million answers. If you say dance, you're gonna get a million answers. If you say pop, you're gonna get a million answers. If you say Gary, Indiana, you might get Michael Jackson a lot. But for me, I always tell entrepreneurs, find that thing that you want to become synonymous with. And so I'm gonna show you this. I'll tell you a quick story about it, but my word is
Dreams.
dreams.
Good.
I was at Pearl Cone in that same initial contract, and after my session went great. I did this contract with every freshman in the building. So again, I walked to lunch with them. Halfway through lunch, a fight breaks out. Me just being me, I'm in there like breaking up the fight, and I hear kids yelling, "The Dream Man breaking up the fight! The Dream Man breaking up the fight!" And I was like, wow, how powerful is that that's how they see me. And so my thought at that moment was, how powerful will it be if you had somebody in every educational environment that represented dreams? Like, this my math teacher, this my science teacher, and this the class I go to talk to about dreams. But when we talk about Miss Clayton, when we talk about our teachers, when you talk about them teachers that you name, that's why you love them. Because outside of the scope of what they was teaching, you was able to dream in those classes.
Yeah.
Freestyle Friday allowed somebody a place to go escape, say some things, do some things that they never did. So for me, I think this word is powerful in so many ways, because everybody has dreams whether they admit it or not. But sometimes the dream is stifling. So our second book, Pat Facts, is called More Than a Dream. So my first book is From One Dreamer to the Next. Pat Facts 1, From One Dreamer to the Next, because it's like, yo, from me to you, this is how I got off. The second book was like, it ain't a dream no more.
Yeah.
It's more than a dream. We doing it now. And so I think this is the most powerful word in the world, because everything is somebody's dream. This table, this office, that TV, these lights, that hat, this shirt. But when you get to the point where you start to put your dreams into the atmosphere and you see them become real, it's the most infectious, contagious feeling that you'll ever feel.
That's good. That's good. So normally what I would do is I would pop this and take the air out of it. But I think that this word needs to stay alive.
That's powerful.
And I've never done that on a podcast. And so I want everybody that heard what he just said, like, whatever dreams that you have, the vision that you can see, it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And so go out there and get it.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I've never dreamt about being a doctor or a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? When I was young, I tell people, there's only two things I wanted to ever do that I remember really. I wanted to be on Sports Center, I wanted to be Stuart Scott, and I wanted to be a teacher. But I remember coming out of school and somebody telling me, man, it's hard to get on Sports Center. And I took that and was like, all right, okay, I'll be a teacher. And it was like that simple.
Wow.
In hindsight, I don't know if I would have done it differently, you know what I'm saying? Because I think that there had to be a part of me that really enjoyed education to even go that route. But I'll be honest to say that there was a part of me that looked at it as like, okay, this might be a little easier, you know what I mean? But I say that to say the things that you dream about are for you, because those dreams are kind of uncontrollable. I could show you a million things, and they just don't tweet. Like the movie Soul, I love the movie Soul. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
But I love the movie when they went around, they had the little place where it was like, experience a little bit of everything, and when your thing glows up, that's what
I love,
right? And so for me, it was just like, man, walking into that classroom, and still, but the issue was that I don't know how to make money here. But once I started seeing them checks come, and when I say checks, and I always tell kids numbers to put it in perspective. Like even some of the students, one of my guys, he plays football at Pearl, he be at TSU, I took him with me to UT Knoxville. I showed him the $3,000 check they gave me. And then I let him hold the money when I sold $1,200 worth of books. And then I let him hold it like halfway to the I was like, hey, Bino, you got that money? Let me get it. And he handed it to me. I peeled off 100, gave it back to him, because that's what the dope boy would have did for him. That's what the streets would have did. They're gonna show you like, this how I make the. They're gonna pick you up, let you ride around, watch you get off, show you the bankroll, fold you a little, and then send you on your way. You're gonna go home. You're gonna say, I want to do that.
I want to do that again. Yeah.
So I'm just saying. So he like. So then when I get back to school, he like, man, y'all listen to Mr. Reese. He got racks. He just showed me a $40,000 check. On God. And they like, for real? And so that was the most powerful thing for me, man, was like, once I was able to see the dream make some money. And I think that's the hold up for everybody. Everybody has the dream. And when I go places, people are like, I don't know what I want to do. I tell them, don't say that. You know what you want to do. You just don't know how to make money with it. or whatever it is. I don't care. It's somebody out here that's getting paid for making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah.
I tell people that grilled cheese truck was driving around the city, they was getting off.
Yeah.
It's somebody at home right now thinking that they
With
got
a cold
they got
grilled
a
cheese.
cold grilled cheese.
Yeah.
But you not the grilled cheesery.
Yeah.
Why? You know what I'm saying? And that was my thing, man. And so, and if you want, you can still pop it, because popping it represents like not stopping at the dream, like moving past the dream.
That's
the dream,
good.
The dream ain't enough no more.
That's good. So we'll take the life out of that thing, man.
There
Cool
you go.
deal. So
Yeah.
where can people find you? How can they be involved? Tell us all that good stuff.
Man, so anywhere on, so people used to have a term called Google me, right? So
Yeah.
I don't say that because it comes off a little arrogant. So I walk up to people and they be like, "You got a business card?" I'm like, "No, do you have Safari on your phone?" Just type my name in Safari. But yeah, you can type Patrick Walker-Reese into any search engine and it's gonna take you there. You can follow me on Instagram at Patrick Walker-Reese. Twitter, I do Pat Facts on Twitter. I've been getting a little more popping on Twitter. That's Pat_Walker-Reese. And then Inspire Be the Dream for all business. I just dropped a poetry album called Pat Poems. That was a way for me to like just get a lot of emotions out during the pandemic. We got our second book, Pat Facts Volume 2, Pat Facts Volume 1, and we got the merch line from Live to Aspire. So,
Dope.
but if you type Patrick Walker-Reese in, it'll take you to all of those things.
You had
in
to
a
do
few
a lot,
clicks.
man. Your name is like a big name.
Yeah. And that's powerful. I'll close on that, man. When I was young, my name was Patrick LaRue. So I was adopted when I was younger, and when I moved to Nashville, I just started writing the name of my adopted family. I didn't have to go to like foster homes and none of that, but my mom married a guy, they divorced, and then his family took me in after it was over, because my mom was dealing with drugs and my biological father was already incarcerated. And so when I started living with the LaRues, when I went to Meg's and stuff, I just started writing Patrick LaRue on everything. Fast forward to my senior year at Hume Falk, the guidance counselor calls me in. She like, "Yo, I gotta talk to you." I'm thinking, damn, I ain't finna graduate. She like, "Patrick LaRue, we can't find any records of this person." I'm like, "Yo, close the door." And I ended up just telling her the whole story.
Wow.
And she was like, well, we gotta do something. So she gave me the information to like look for a lawyer to see about changing it legally. It was like $600. I went home, my people was like, "Well, you working now, so if you wanna do it, we support you, but you gotta pay for it." And I was like, "Ooh, $600? That's like 4 pair of J's." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I ended up going back to school, I told the guidance counselor, when I walk across the stage, say Patrick LaRue, but put Patrick Walker-Reese on my diploma so I can use it. And when I got to TSU, I just went by Patrick Walker-Reese, and then Facebook hit. And so when Facebook, you got to use your name.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so when it hit, all the people I had known from my life was like, "Bro, I seen somebody on Facebook with your face, but it say Patrick Walker-Reese." And so I just, I used to shrug people off. But I say that to say, for me, when I was 18, because when I was young, Cincinnati, which was where a lot of my family lived, the name Reese, all of that was like, I had so much resentment towards it. And so my first like mental health moment, I didn't even know it was that, but it was me telling myself like, "Bro, I'm gonna own this, because this is actually who I am." And it wasn't until probably about 4 years ago, somebody was like, "Man, you know your initials say power?" And
That's good.
I was like, "Bro, I never even looked at it that way."
Yeah.
But because my whole life, I was writing PML on things, Patrick Montrese LaRue.
Yeah.
I was never writing
Yeah.
PWR, you know what I'm saying? And so now, it's just crazy. You know how God works.
Yeah.
You being, again, going back to your authentic self.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So authentically, who I was Patrick Montrese Walker-Reese. And
good.
most people think Walker is my middle name. My last name, Walker-Reese, is
Walker-Reese.
hyphenated. My mama was just wild like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. So that's where the Patrick Walker-Reese came from. But I agree. So even we talked about my daughter. I'm gonna have a Patterson Walker-Reese. So the PWR is gonna continue.
Dope. Good for you, man. Dreams come true every day.
And every day dreams come true.
Good stuff. I appreciate
Appreciate
it.
you for having me,
Yep.
brother.